Pattaya City Expats Club is a non-profit social organisation and our speakers are volunteers. The club as such assumes no responsibility or liability for the professional reputation of or the quality of services provided by the speaker today.
Guest speaker, Mike Doyle. Mike is a well-known Bangkok lawyer. His topic today is avoiding legal catastrophes in Thailand. He's going to tell us about some of the most common legal mistakes that foreigners make and how to avoid them. He will focus on real estate acquisitions, estate planning, employment law, using real-life stories. Mike is a frequent public speaker throughout Thailand. He's fluent in Thai, can speak and write Thai. He is a certified U.S. lawyer, United States lawyer, and is a senior partner of the Bangkok-based law firm Seri, Manop and Doyle. He has practiced in Thailand since 1996. And in 1999, he joined the firm, then became a named partner in 2002. He first published his very well-known book, Doyle's Practical Guide to Thailand Business Law in 2004, which is currently in its 5th edition, which is available in English and in Japanese. He went on to publish his second book, Doyle's Practical Guide to Business Law in Asia, which he wrote in 2009, which is in its currently in its 2nd edition. So with that, I'd like to welcome Mike Doyle.
Thank you for that. So I mentioned my book, the movie comes out next. That's a joke. Anyway, I'm really happy to be here today. And I just heard that this is a good turnout for you guys. So I'm happy to come back, but I always want to come on flu shot day. So I can pretend that it's me that you're going to see. Okay? So I ran across this that pretty much hits the nail on the head in terms of what normal people think about the legal profession. That we're rats, we're dishonest, we sleep with clients, take bribes, all this. But as some of you will know, there are times when a lawyer can come in handy. Okay? And as he just told you, I practiced law in Thailand for 23 years. And during that time, I've seen lots of crazy situations. Okay, and what I'm going to do is, I'm going to share some of those stories with you as a way to explain some legal principles that will hopefully be of some benefit. Okay. Okay, so the first story I'll talk about involves estate planning. Okay, then I'll talk about a few stories involving employment labor law, and I'll finish with a real estate acquisition story that happened in Pattaya. Right, after that, I'm happy to take any questions you might have. So for estate planning, the first thing I want to say, just go over some of the rules. Okay. Firstly, if you die without a will in Thailand, Thailand's intestate rules apply. Okay, so that's the same in most countries. So if you don't take the time to prepare a document, will, to state who gets what upon your death, then the law decides. Okay. Wills must be properly executed. That's the same as in most of your countries. You know, they have to be properly signed and witnessed by two people who don't take under the will. Foreign wills normally completely enforceable in Thailand. Thai law does not recognize trust. You know, trust is whereby you can set up a trust is something where upon your death you can set forth instructions about how your assets will be distributed for, say, 20 years. So you could have your son, instead of receiving everything on day one, you could spread that out for 10 or 20 years. Under Thai law, you can't do that. You know, your son would get everything on the first day. Right? And the same rules apply for Thais and foreigners for estate planning, which is with a few exceptions. All right. So my first story about estate planning, it involves a Swedish entrepreneur. He got married to his wife in his 20s and then established a business and made a lot of money. Okay? And his wife, his Thai wife, held the shares of the business. Then a few years later, they separated, but they didn't divorce. All right? Because he didn't want to make her upset because she held the shares of his company. But she really hated him. I mean, like intense ex-wife hate. Maybe some of you guys know what I'm talking about. A few years after that, he remarried to a German lady. Okay, but their marriage wasn't registered because legally speaking, he was already married, right? But the German lady got involved with the business, was the head of accounting, and the plan was that, you know, if anything happened to him, he would continue the business, or she would continue the business. Then this guy tragically died in an automobile accident without a will. So what you have to understand is everybody's got a will. You know, in effect, everyone has a will. Either you take the time to prepare instructions about how you want your assets distributed upon your death, or you don't, and you just let the law distribute your assets according to it's called intestate laws. So how do you think that the law decided? He didn't have a will, so how do you think the law decided to distribute his assets upon his death? To his ex-wife, who was already rich, who hated him, took under the will. His son, who hadn't talked to him in 10 years, who was already rich, took under the will. His mother and father in Sweden, who hadn't been close with in 30 years, took under will. His German wife, who he loved, you know, and his plan was for her to continue the business, got nothing. Got absolutely nothing. Not only did she get nothing, she got immediately fired from the company, right? Because his shares of the company became a part of the estate, which went to the wife, and the wife didn't feel any need to protect the interests of the new wife, right? Also, she got kicked out of the condominium that she was living in because it was in the Swedish guy's name. Also, all the bank accounts were in his name. So they all became a part of the estate. So it's pretty, it wasn't probably his plan for things to work out like that, right? So what can we learn from this story? Number one, never get married. My wife gave me a dirty look when I said that. No, I mean, okay, the bonehead lesson is if you have assets in Thailand, you should have a will. It doesn't have to be a Thai will. I mean, maybe it's easiest if it's a Thai will, but it doesn't have to be a Thai will. It can be something very, very simple, 2 or 3 pages. If he would have said, my German wife gets everything, that's it. Under Thai law, you can exclude everybody else if you want. Under laws of some countries you can't, but in Thailand you can. But he didn't do that. He allowed Thailand's intestate laws to apply, and it was a really bad outcome. Also, Another reason to have a will is because this happens to me all the time. When a foreigner dies, what will always happen is their family from the UK or Germany or US or Japan or somewhere come in, they're grief-stricken, and then they have to talk to somebody like me, right? And if you don't have a will, they have to hire somebody like me to determine who gets what. You know, so you're adding a level of complexity in a really grief-stricken, stressful situation already. Whereas if you had a will that said not only where your assets will go, but what your funeral arrangements you want, people aren't guessing about what you want because you're not around to ask anymore. All right? So, for what it's worth, I would suggest that you should have a will, either under Thai law or your home country law is fine. Okay, so the next few stories I'll tell involve employment law. And some pretty bad things happen in these situations. And let me tell you, the reason why, and just in my time in Thailand, why foreigners have trouble with labor law in Thailand is because they're not very good at interviewing Thais. You know, it's just harder to size people up if you didn't grow up here. And if you if you're not good at interviewing and you didn't make a good selection, then problem. If you select the wrong people, problems can arise, and that can give rise to legal issues. Okay, so this involves a jewelry company, a Japanese company, and the Japanese guy hired a managing director of their Thailand subsidiary. So the parent company was in Japan, and everything went fine. The relationship between the Japanese CEO and the Thai managing director, and then the Japanese CEO found out that he was that the Thai managing director was embezzling. Okay. And so he was really, really upset, came to Thailand and fired him immediately. Fired him, get out of my company. That was a Tuesday. Still hasn't contacted me. Then he gets back on the plane and flies back to Tokyo. Now this managing director, he comes back to the jewelry company on Saturday with a police officer. And he says, with the police, he goes to the security guard and he says, hey, I'm a director of this company. I have a legal right to enter the premises. And the police officer backed him up. He said, yes, sure. And so what the really dangerous thing in a jewelry company is what you can put in your pocket can be tens of thousands of dollars, hundreds of thousands of dollars, right? So that's what he did. That guy went into the factory, deleted all the incriminating information about him, and started putting stuff in his pockets. Now, did that guy have the right? All right. So then the Japanese CEO calls me and just livid, So what in the hell is going on? I just fired this guy. I said, yeah, you fired this guy, and you had a right to fire him as an employee. However, he's the director of the company. Whose job is it to hire and fire directors? Whose job is it? It's the shareholders. How does the shareholder replace a director? They call a shareholders meeting and they pass a resolution. And he didn't do any of that. All he did was fire that guy so on that Saturday, when he showed up with the police officer saying that he was a director, he was right. Now, does that mean that he has any right to go into the premises and steal things? Of course not. But there wasn't anyone. All he had to do to accomplish his, improper objective was to enter the premises, and he had a legitimate reason to enter he had a legal right to enter the premises. So this was not a good result. So we had to hurry up and call a shareholders meeting, because a shareholders meeting, you have to have a notice period, 7 days. 7 days went along, so we changed the security guard so he couldn't get back in, right? But then we had to hold our breath for 7 days just so he didn't do anything else crazy. So this was not a good outcome. So what can we learn from this? We learned that so a lot of people that are directors of companies wear kind of two hats. You know, one hat is they're an employee, and you can, like an authorized person in the company, you can fire an employee for anything. You know, maybe you have to pay them severance, but you can fire them effective immediately for anything, but you can't as a director. If you can't get that person, that director, to sign a resignation, there's going to be a number of days where he continues to be a director that you can't do anything about. All right? Also, we learned that a lot of times in companies, I was like, oh yeah, I'll let my friend be a director of the company. Because you think, well, he doesn't have any signing authority, what can he do? Under Thai law, and under law, most places, if they can argue that they have a legitimate business reason to enter the premises, they can do it, and the law will support them. Okay, so the next story also has to do with employment. What happens a lot of times also is when you come to a place like Thailand where you don't understand the language or the culture, you know, and then you'll have either it's your small business or you have a boss saying, okay, we have a client, you got to open operations. It's human nature when you have to recruit people. You'll find one person that you're very, very comfortable with. You'll say, oh, their English is good. They seem trustworthy, they seem capable. And then you start looking through the world, through their eyes in Thailand. So you trust that person, you know, implicitly. In your home country, you'd never do that, right? In your home country, if you had a question, you would ask 5 different people because, you know, everybody's got a different point of view. But in Thailand, just because you have time constraints, you find one person that you hope is qualified, and you just trust that one person for everything. And really, it's not a good business practice, but you feel like you don't have any alternative. So that's where some of these issues come from. Right. Okay. So what happens here is that an American company was set up, and it was the same kind of situation. They find a financial controller, and they hire the person, they put financial controls in. And what they did was here, they had, for all checks, 2 people signed the checks with the company seal. Okay, that's reasonable, right? But what the problem with the financial controller was there was only one company seal. There was only one company seal, and it resided with that person. Okay? So then, years down the line, there was a problem. There was a problem, and the guy said, and the owner went to the person and said, hey, listen, I found out that you did bad things. You need to return all company property and resign immediately. And she just said no. She denied everything and didn't return any of the property. Okay, then he knew he had a problem, because without that seal, he can't pay company expenses. He can't pay salaries. He can't do anything, you know. So then he calls me and says, well, what can I do? You know, what can I do in this situation? Can I have a duplicate seal prepared? And I said, sure you can. Sure you can. What do you need to have a duplicate seal registered with the Ministry of Commerce? I need 2 signatures and the old seal. Okay, we don't have the old seal, it's with her, right? I said, well, could you have a new seal made? I said, of course you can. What do you need? Because if you had a new seal, number 1, he would nullify the seal that she already has. And number 2, he would have a seal so he could start signing checks again. I said, of course you can. What do you need to register the new seal? I need the old seal and 2 signatures. He didn't have that. He said, can I report the existing seal lost or stolen with the police? And I said, no. And why? Because it's not lost or stolen. It's not lost. You know exactly where it is. And it's not stolen because you legally gave it to her at the time. She's just refusing to give it back. And what she held 5% of the shares of the company. So if he would have done if he would have used an unregistered seal or reported it lost or stolen, she would have reported him to the police. And if you get police involved, things can get really complicated really fast. All right? So it wasn't good. So what he had to do is negotiate with her. He had to negotiate with her for her to resign and return the seal. And he even had to pay money, which was not a good outcome at all. Okay, so what can we learn from this? We learned that a company seal is 300 baht worth of wood and rope. Okay, but because it's registered, no sane person, if he knew better, would only have one company seal. That was his problem. Nobody does that. But she knew that he did not know. And so she used that to her advantage. She didn't have any problem at the time, but in the future, if there was an issue, she wanted leverage. And she created leverage for herself. Also, when you fire somebody, when you plan to fire somebody, and they have company property, you better plan how you're going to get that back. Normally, when you fire somebody, you have a check to give them, right, for severance. So you have some leverage there too. I'm not giving you this check that you want until you return everything. But here, that wasn't that situation, so he paid the price for it. Okay, so one more employment-related thing, and then I'll talk about real estate for a second. But this is a different kind of thing. Another kind of company that I've seen during my years here, it'll be a bigger company, but they'll have maybe a small office in Thailand, but they're hesitant to put in like executive people, like leadership people. So they just want to manage everything from here. It's a Korean company. Okay, there's lots of reasons for that. Maybe they have trouble recruiting people, senior people here, or whatever. But this situation was a Korean person, and he noticed that he was a CFO. He noticed that in their Thai office, every month there was an invoice coming in for 90,000 baht, and it was paid. And it had been like this for 5 years. And he couldn't figure out what they were paying for, right? So he comes to my office and he shows me a copy of the invoice, and I see the business that's receiving this payment every month is a registered ordinary partnership in Khon. Okay, that's weird. That's why is a registered ordinary partnership in Isan receiving 90,000 baht every month for 5 years? And then when I checked, he said, well, who owns that company? And I checked, and the owner's not registered, which is also very weird. Okay? But I do have the tax ID number for this Khon business. So I have somebody call the people we know at the revenue department, and we said, well, who owns this company? And the revenue officials told me the name, and I said, the Korean guy was right here, and I said, do you know so-and-so? He said, yeah, that's the husband of my head of accounting. So they had set up this dummy company to receive 90,000 baht a month for 5 years for nothing, and no services were performed at all. So, but then you have a question, then he's upset, right? And it's a listed company, so there's lots of legal implications of this. So he said, well, I've got to get her out fast. And I said, no, you don't. No, you don't, because this happened for 5 years. Somebody else knows about this. And if you fly off the handle and fire this person immediately, you're likely never to find out who knew about this. So what ended up happening was they hired Grant Thornton to do some kind of forensic, accounting to find evidence and this and that. So they had this kind of pretend renovation of the office, so everyone was working from home, and they came up with all the evidence against this person. But the thing that they found out was really interesting too. So it turns out that over the course of these years, there was 4 or 5 people that definitely knew about this, that they found evidence. And it turns out that the policy of this company was to make the staff work overtime on Saturday and Sunday, but they weren't paying them. Okay? So these 4 or 5 people came up with a plan to take that 90,000 baht, which they say should have been payable to these staff, and then distribute it. So that's not legitimate, right? That's not legitimate, but if you own that business and you plan to continue to operate that business moving forward, that's something you want to know. The why is important. So then we brought everybody in, we showed them the evidence, and we made them all resign effective immediately and return whatever money they had, and they went forward. Then life went on somehow. But what can we learn from this? Oh, the other thing, the head of the accounting also was the nominee shareholder of the company. So on top of everything else, if you fire her, you have to be able to get those shares back, because she held 51%. If you say, oh, you're fired, I'm reporting you to police, and by the way, will you please transfer the shares back? That was also a problem. So the first lesson is, having staff hold shares on behalf of the company, if they're not the real investor, is generally a pretty bad idea, because it gives them leverage, right? And also, in a terrible situation like this, it is human nature to feel like you've been deceived, and to get that person out immediately. But sometimes that's not the smart thing to do. Sometimes the smart thing to do is just be quiet until you know all the facts. Okay, the last story I'll tell has to do with purchasing off-plan condominiums in Pattaya. Okay, this happens in Pattaya. So this is just one story, but all the stories are exactly the same. Okay, and none of them have a happy ending. I mean, not the ones that contact me. Anyway. So this guy.
Just a moment.
So anyway, the facts aren't okay. So the situation where back in 2010, this French guy bought 5 units in a building that didn't exist yet. Right, it happens all the time. He got the developer offered him a big discount. So what happens in these situations is that the developer that might be way undercapitalized, super undercapitalized, he is desperate to get money, to get the first money into the development. Maybe all he's done is hired the design people to make pictures to sell, right? Maybe he only has an option on the piece of land. Okay, so he gives major discounts. He gets a mortgage from the bank, because the bank will loan him the money if he owns the land, right? Because the bank's secured. But all the people that bought rights to that condo that doesn't exist are not secured. There's no he bought title to 5 units, but the title deed doesn't exist yet. So at that point, those buyers are credit card companies. They're credit card companies, completely unsecured creditors. So what happened with this developer is, and some of these developers my firm tells me never to use the names of developers because I can get myself in trouble. But they're like, but some of the developers you've heard of. You've heard of them before, but something will happen. Maybe the market goes down or whatever, and the developer will go broke. You know, maybe the building's halfway completed, but the title for the individual units has never been issued. So the buyers don't have any specific rights other than they'll file a claim. So this guy, he said, well, can we help? Can you help me? And I said, well, I don't know. I can sue the developer, and I think we can get a judgment. But you're at the back of the line. You know, the bank that has the mortgage, they don't care. You know, maybe they're not even in a hurry because that land's not going anywhere, and because their mortgage is registered on the land title, even if the landowner tried to sell the land to somebody else, the purchaser would purchase subject to that mortgage of the bank. So the bank says, I'm not going to get screwed here, okay? But all of the buyers, so then you have this guy that tried to purchase 5 units, and then all the other buyers hurry to sue the developer, and they all get judgments. But what happens is the bank that has the mortgage, they sue the developer who has no money now, okay, and they ask the bank to foreclose on the land. So that means that they have the right to sell the land at auction. So maybe sell the land and the half-built building at auction, and then whatever they get first goes to the bank. You know, so if they owe the bank 100, the bank gets all of 100, that plus interest first. But if the total price is 110, then that 10 is distributed to everybody else. And the problem is, after the bank gets paid, a lot of times there's not enough for anybody else to get paid, or just, you know, pennies on the dollar. So it's really it's a sad situation, and I tell people up front when I don't care what the real estate agent or the developer, you know, if they're in a nice office, I don't care. If anybody asks you to buy units in a building that doesn't exist yet, especially in Pattaya, you know, I'm just a lot these days. A lot of the bad stories are coming from this part of Thailand. Just be really skeptical. You know, really say, what happens if this happens? What happens if this happens? I want to know. I don't care that the development is under a brand that I've seen before. You know, because it's not like I'm not going to say the name of it, but it's not like there's one big company that might be on the stock exchange in Thailand, and then that company is really the developer. That's not the way it works. That big company sets up a small company to a special purpose vehicle only to do this one development and capitalize it for as little as possible. Why? Because they want to cut off their liability. You know, even though that it's in the same group of companies, legally speaking, they're separate entities. You can only they'll make it where you can only sue that one developer company. Anyway, so what can we learn from this? Be very careful. So if you buy off land, you're a credit card company. You know, you are. You have some rights. A lawyer can sue. You can get a judgment. Maybe that'll make you feel better. You know, maybe you'll get something, but you're only going to get paid after the secured creditor gets paid. That's for sure, because the bank will make sure of that, because the bank doesn't care about you at all. And if you do buy off plan, do as much investigation as you can. You know, see what the company's capitalized at. You know, if the people have ever gone through bankruptcy before, you know, just do the best you can, and you should get a big discount because your risk is very high, irrespective of what they say. Oh, this is my book. 5th edition just came out 2 weeks ago, so it's pretty current. My 8-year-old daughter, Jessica, is my chief salesperson right there. She hasn't fallen asleep during my presentation. So that it's for sale at Asia Books for 600 baht, but you can buy it here for 500 if you want. I'd be happy to take any questions. Okay.
I have a will, which is written. The clock's coming through. I will get to you eventually.
Thank you. So the company that went bankrupt, I assume that the parent company would have the option to come in at auction and buy that and proceed again. Would that be correct?
Yes. Also, the bank has that option. You know, that happens a lot. There's like, wait, what are you talking about? You said the developer borrowed money from the bank. The bank gets paid. The bank gets paid based upon whatever it's sold at auction, but you're saying that the bank can bid? You know, because the bank will do that. Also, the parent company will do that if they can see that they'll get a really good deal. You know, the other thing that happens sometimes is that the buyers, the really upset buyers, will form some kind of consortium to bid. But then that's not attractive because then you're putting even more money in. But, and there's just nothing that the buyers can do with regard to the bank or with the bidder at auction because they don't have a contract with those people. The problem is the only contract you have is with the developer and they're broke. You know, having a contract with anybody who's broke doesn't get you very far.
Mike, over to your left, please.
Yeah, a quick question. I'm sure this situation has only happened once in the history of Pattaya, but I'll ask about it. Farang comes to Pattaya, meets Thai lady, falls in love, buys a condo, and puts it in her name. Farang returns to his home country for 2 weeks, comes back. The condo is now rented out for a 2-year lease. She refuses to speak to him. She keeps all the rent money, and the condo is now hers forever, and he's SOL. Is there anything that can be done about these kind of situations?
No. So the even a more extreme case. At one time, when people come to me with situations like that, I don't do that for a living, so I try to find somebody who's really good at those kind of things. Okay, the one related situation, the condo was in the foreigner's name, okay, but the girlfriend was living there with her son, and she just refused to leave. But it was in her name, you know. And then he said, and then things went south, and he wanted her and the son to leave, and so he went to the police, and the police didn't want any part of that. No part of that at all, you know. And so what did he do? And he said, that's a good question. I'm not sure. So he went to somebody who but I pointed him to somebody who specializes in this thing. And this guy, very smart, very, very smart lawyer. He said, this is what you do. I said, are you living there? You know, the foreigner living? He said, no, I'm living down the hall. Take the front door off the hinges. So they took the front door off the hinges. He says, okay, you stay, but you're going to stay here without a front door. So he was there for 5 days and they moved out.
Just a quick question on, says nominee shareholders, is that still legal, or a gray area, or it depends how, the nominee shareholders are, Thai nominee shareholders are, how do you set it up?
Yeah, there's no gray area about using nominee shareholders. It's completely illegal. Widely done. Japanese are experts. They'll have all these cross shareholdings, but don't let anyone tell you that using nominees is gray area, because it's not. You can be really, really sophisticated about it or very basic about it, but that's just different degrees. I mean, the law says that it's and I'm not, no judgments here. You know, people have to find a way to do business, and there are Fortune 500 companies that use Thai nominees. You know, insurance company, you can't do insurance as a foreign-held company in Thailand. Every insurance company you see. So it's, you know, they have to use a nominee situation, but they just find somebody who's very, very presentable. Okay, so that's a risk that you cannot eliminate. You just have to find ways to mitigate the risk as much as you can.
So I'm married with a Thai citizen and we live here in Thailand. If I get unconscious, has my wife the right to decide what's happened with me by Thai law?
No. So there's something called a living will.
Yeah, if I have a living will,
Yeah.
then it's to follow up the living will. But if I have no living will,
You have no living will. Nobody's going to turn off the machines.
but
Nobody's going to turn off the machines without a living will. I mean, especially in a Buddhist country, that they will not. Absolutely not. You have to have a living will.
But I have read that the Thai law changed, that the wives can do that, but I'm not sure that's why I asked this question.
Maybe it changed yesterday, but I do this a lot. And if you want to avoid, you know, being on machines and your estate spending, you know, family spending all that money, you should definitely have a living will, because it's very easy to do. You know, for most of you, there won't be any, you know, for wills and a living will. For most of you, unless your assets in Thailand are over 50 million baht, there's no estate taxes. So preparing a will is not, you know, you can have a basic will done by just about any lawyer. You know? So it's not cost prohibitive.
Hello. What I don't understand here, and I love the place, there's no property tax. Is that the reason the roads are so bad and the infrastructure is not good? Why is there no property tax? Like, I could buy a condo, leave it sit there for 5 years, and hope it appreciates. Cost me nothing. Back in North America, if I do that, I'd pay like 10,000 a year in taxes. I can't do it. I gotta sell it. Here, I could just leave it sit there. It cost me nothing. Why is that true what I'm saying? It is true.
For most properties,
Yeah.
there's no right. Maybe the why. Lawyers aren't really good.
No.
Good at responding to the why question. That's a policy question. You got to
The
talk to a
infrastructure
local
here is so bad.
politician.
Most countries, the property tax pays for the roads and the wires and all. And here it's not good. I couldn't get over my landlord last year. He has 7 condos. No property tax. Any other country, be like 10 grand a year for each one. Anyway, so it is true. There is no property tax.
But for a lot, I mean, Thailand's, to be fair, Thailand's a developing country, and the tax rules, if you compare tax rules for developing countries with more developing countries, it's really apples and
Yeah,
oranges.
but isn't that sound funny that I could buy a condo, leave it sit there for 10 years? Oh, maybe it'll go up. It's a good investment. If it goes up, I make money. And it costs me nothing to
But one thing
what I'm saying is there's no carrying charges for my investment.
Well, one thing that I would agree with is, and until recently, there's no estate tax either. So you have families that sit on land for generations.
Yeah.
You know, for generations, without having any incentive in terms of the tax they pay to do anything with it. You know, so I'm glad that there's an estate tax now, at least, you know.
It's different, but if there was a property tax, I think the infrastructure would be a lot
Yeah,
better.
it would encourage people to do more development too. I agree with that.
Just in front of you, Mike. Right in front of you.
All right.
Hello.
Yes, my question is, if you are dealing with a company that's registers, it's a limited liability company, and you know the name of it, what government agency should I go to find out who are the principals in that company?
If you have the name of the company in Thai, you can, to find out who the directors are, to find out what the capital is, and and the address, you can do it online. It's in Thai, but you can have somebody do that online. If you have the name of the company, you want to know who the shareholders are, you have to send somebody to the Ministry of Commerce in Bangkok. But it's all public access information. You can even pull up their most recent financial statement as filed. So you can see their balance sheet and everything.
It has to be in Thai.
It's in Thai.
Okay, let's see if this comes out right.
Stand up, please.
Hello, can you hear me?
Can you stand up, please?
Yeah.
Stand up.
Can you hear? All right, everybody hear me? Look, I have,
Please stand up.
I have 3 or 4 IRAs, individual retirement accounts in the United States. I have 2 children and an ex-wife and a Thai girlfriend. Okay? In order to distribute my IRAs, and I've got one pension fund too, which is my own pension fund, my incorporation. And I have a Thai bank account, and my girlfriend has a Thai bank account, my Thai girlfriend of 12 years. I cannot in order for my girlfriend to get any of my IRAs, I am informed that I need a signature guarantee for her of her signature guaranteed by a U.S. bank. That cannot be done. Okay, she'd have to fly to America, go get a.
You can't do it with Citibank in Bangkok?
Citibank will only deal with corporations. They will not deal with individuals. So my plan is to take the 3 or 4 IRAs that I have. One's a rollover, that's why I say 3 or 4. And take the pension fund, hold that separate, and make the pension fund put a codicil in my will, okay? Having her take over the assets in the pension fund, A, or B, transfer the pension fund, which has tax consequences, in cash to my Bangkok bank account, and have my Bangkok bank account on my demise. I think I'll go 20 more years, so I don't know what's going to happen. It'll change, somewhere along the line, but have the pension fund one way or another put in her name, or having her benefit as the only recipient of the funds in the pension fund. Does that sound kosher to you?
So I deal with pension funds in this situation, and if it's not like, if you haven't gone through their steps about who gets paid upon your death, then if that's not settled with them, you're looking at a long time. Whoever would be paid in your stead will have to deal with their procedures. So it's much better to do it while you're alive. That's my.
So it's better to cash in the pension fund while I'm alive, put it in my Bangkok bank, and have a codicil written so that my Bangkok bank and other miscellaneous assets, there's no real estate involved, go to her directly from my Bangkok bank account to her. That's fine.
This is a fairly specific situation. So let me talk about, from her standpoint, if the money's already in the bank account, then that's easiest for her. However, you may prefer that those payments come every month like they always have.
It's a defined contribution plan. Not
Sorry to interrupt you, sir, but firstly, it's only supposed to be 1 question per person. And he'll be around afterwards. You can follow up the question afterwards. Don't want to be rude, but yeah.
I'm just wondering, is there such a thing as a class action suit here, and how many people would you need to have one?
There's definitely a class action suit here. So the how many do you need?
I mean, is there a specific number you must have over 100 or less than 100, you know?
I don't know the answer to that.
Okay.
You know, but what I'll always say for buyers or for shareholders, just from the practical standpoint, if your facts are all the same, you should sue together, because then you can share your legal expense. You know, if the facts are all the same. You know, that could be it for a developer or whatever.
All right, thank you.
If I buy a condo, there are two ways to buy them as a foreigner. One is to buy the folder, and the other one is to open a Thai company, which is, there's a problem with and then what I heard, if you open a company and you want to sell it, it's a problem. But I don't know really the law, and what do you recommend about this?
From a legal standpoint, whether you buy the condo as an individual or as a company shouldn't matter. I mean, the issue you have to contend with is the ratio of the total space in the building. You know, because in a condo you can buy a unit in your own name if you're a foreigner, but the total space in that condo building can't be held by more than 49% of non-Thais, foreigners, right? If you buy as a company, and if it's a foreign-held company, there should be no difference at all. You know, but if you have a foreign company, you have to have an annual shareholders meeting. You know, at least the paper for it. You have to submit your taxes every year. So I always tell people to think about things before you start registering companies for everything, because there's an administrative cost.
So can I just come in on that for 1 second? My experience is that if you buy a condo in a Thai name, you will get it cheaper than if you get it through a company name.
I think that's it. That was thank you for a really interesting talk.
Yes, so I really appreciate the talk today. This is a certificate of appreciation. I don't go on with a couple others perhaps, but thank you very much.